Water is life. We all need clean water to live, to grow crops, to thrive. But there just isn't enough water or land to feed our hungry world. Unless we change the way we grow food. That's why millions of farmers are turning to Jain. Jain is totally integrated, totally innovative. Farmers helping farmers. The company logo reflects our holistic cycle of shared values. The sun, source of free renewable energy. Enhanced crops thanks to tissue culture plants and improved inputs. Water used sparingly and intelligently. The land protected and used wisely to deliver more. Jain has become a worldwide force in irrigation technology, the agri-value chain, and green energy solutions. Headquartered in Jalgaon, India, in just 2 generations, the company that started with 7,000 rupees has become a $1 billion organization, the world leader in agrotechnology. Jain starts with detailed 3D designs and provides the widest range of irrigation products and solutions. In this remote part of the world where there is no electricity, Jain's solar-powered pumps provide on-demand irrigation through a variety of Jain pipes to irrigate the roots of plants produced in Jain's own fields and greenhouses. We pioneered the use of drip tapes for row crops with the innovative Chapin tape. Thanks to our micro-irrigation systems and close work with farmers, we help them grow better produce that sells for more. We have even created a breakthrough technique to grow rice with drip irrigation. The result, better yields and better quality. Israel is known for bringing advanced irrigation to the world, and Nandan Jain led the way with integral drip line and sprinklers. Jain, total integration, total technological innovation, whether you farm 1 or 100,000 acres. No one offers a greater variety of products than Jain. On 5 continents, Jain is transforming the lives of farmers. Millions of farmers, 10,500 associates, more than 1,000 agro-specialists, 30 production plants, sales in 116 countries, 7,000 dealers and distributors, global leaders in micro-irrigation, mangrove processing, tissue culture plantlets, pioneers in solar agri-pumping, producing 40,000 kilometers of drip tube every day, with annual revenues exceeding $1 billion and revenue growth of 1,400% in just 10 years. Why is Jain different? We are a global company that built our business on results, trust, constant innovation, and total integration. We are financially strong, enjoying steady, sustainable growth. We believe that you need to leave the world a better place than you found it. We believe in sustainability. We invest heavily in our people, our partners, and critically, our farmers. Food and energy security is tied to water security. But with today's technology, no one should ever go hungry. And every farmer, no matter how small or large, can produce more crop per drop. There is no need to fight wars over water, because if used wisely, we can make it last. Water is life, and at Jain, we are dedicated to improving life everywhere for everyone, now and in the future.
Welcome. Namaste. I am Ravichandran. I am farmer from Tamil Nadu. I have been farming over 35 years. I grow rice, sugarcane, cotton, pulses, and so on. So my place is situated in the place called Poongulam in Tiruvallur district in Tamil Nadu. So farming is my passion. So I experimented with a lot of new innovations. So I am very much attracted by any good technology. So water being a scarce resource these days, I wanted to test some of the farming systems or technologies to improve the water productivity. So let me share my experience on drip irrigation in my rice field. See, as I said, my place is situated in Tiruvallur district. It is in the Kaveri Delta region. So rice is the major crop in Kaveri Delta district. So the Kaveri Delta districts, most of the places, it's all wetland. We have clay soil. The soil type is plastic clay. So we grow rice usually. Earlier we used to grow rice 2 times a year, followed by pulses. Rice is the major crop here. Uh, so even for our day-to-day life, we use rice. We consume rice for breakfast, idli, dosa, and we consume rice for lunch and dinner. So rice is part of our life. So this is the bondage between the people of Kaveri Delta region and the rice crop. So I'm very proud that I grow this essential, vital food crop, which is consumed by over 3 billion people all over the world. So actually, my farm size is 52 acres, out of which 15 acres are my own land. So of things are I have taken them on lease. The minuscule small portion of my land, it is part of this 166 million hectares, which caters, which produces around 760 million metric tons globally. So Kaveri Delta districts, it was once rice bowl of, it was called rice bowl of Tamil Nadu. In Tamil, they used to say, Sor Nadu Sorodaitu. That means the land of the Chola kingdom. So it is abundant. There is abundant rice production. So I am referring to the olden days. Now the things are slowly changing. So when I took up farming in the year in 1985, I used to get the water, subsoil water, at 45 feet level. Now we have to dig up to 200 feet depth. So this is the change in the groundwater situation here. As I said earlier, we grow rice twice in a year. So in the month of normally in the month of April, May, we take up the cultivation of kuruvai, which is short duration paddy crop, which will be followed by after the harvest. We go for another rice that is called thaladi. And in case again after so January, in the month of Thai, in the Tamil month of Thai, we take up the cultivation of either pulses. Those who are having pump set facility, they would be taking up irrigated cotton. So this is the general pattern of farming in this area. So now the entire thing has totally changed for various reasons. First thing is because of erratic monsoon, because the impact of climate change we have started feeling, and there is groundwater depletion. As I said earlier we used to get water at 45 feet. Now it is more than even 200 feet. We have to dig up to get water for our irrigation purpose. And there is another factor, which is interstate water sharing issues, also which is beyond the scope of this presentation. So these are some of the challenges that made water very scarce. These factors has made water very scarce. Besides that, frequently we face back-to-back drought condition. So even last year we even had the problem of growing at least one crop. Even single crop we could not grow. So that was the situation that prevailed last year. Fortunately, this year the precipitation has improved, and we will be getting the river water. The dam would be opened on 12th June. Nevertheless, we have to use water very sparingly. So government distributes water in turn system, and again there is a general feeling that rice is a water guzzler. Even I was under the impression that rice is a water guzzler. I was under the impression for thousands of years we have been thinking that rice needs a lot of water. Uh, there is a popular saying in Tamil, by Tamil poet Avvaiyar, "வரப்புயர நீர் உயரும், நீர் உயர நெல் உயரும், நெல் உயர குடி உயரம், குடி உயர கோன் உயரம்," which means the taller the buns, then we can import more water. If we import more water, then we can grow more rice. More rice means the nation would prosper. So the Avvaiyar, she lived some 2,000 years back. She had written that poem. So there is a mindset that so more the water, rice needs more water, then only it could be grown. So this is the mindset of the people all over this place, and I have interacted with some of my friends abroad also. They also feel the same way. Out of 85% of fresh water used for irrigation, almost it's about 60% of it is used for rice cultivation alone. That means rice consumes about 50% of the total fresh water. So much of water is being used. I would rather call it as being misused for rice. So I will come to it how we are able to, how I will explain later how rice could be grown with less amount of water, with one third of water what we are presently using. Another study says that about 2.5 times of water that is needed for wheat or maize is used by rice. That means 2.5 times more water is that we are using for wheat or corn is used for rice. And one more study says that to produce 1 kilogram of rice, we need about anywhere between 4,000 to 6,000 liters, depending on the state. I understand in Punjab they use more water, they import more water. So that means, in case we may proudly say that we are exporting, say, so many tons of, so many million tons of, so many thousand tons of rice abroad. That means if we export 1 kilogram of rice, that means we are exporting 4,000 liters of water. So water is so scarce. If you go to Chennai, you can find. So last year, one water tanker of 4,000 liters, it was selling around 2,000 rupees. So that was the situation that prevailed last year. This year also, Chennai still they are buying lorry loads of water. Water is so precious. So therefore, there is a see if you are able to conserve water that we are spending for rice, we can save enormous quantity of water. There is a mindset that rice could be grown only if and only if there is copious water is available. So this is the mindset. So this is this mind block must go. So this is how normally farmers grow using borewell water or river water to grow rice. They impound the water in the field. So they use the river water through the canals. They flood the field. So in the fallow field after the summer, they flood the field. So it takes about 3 to 4 days to drench the entire field to make it super saturated. Then they use the tractor to plow the field. So much of water, about 40% of water that is totally used for rice cultivation would have been used for the preparation of land itself. So this is how so much of water is stored. On an average, about 10 centimeters of water is impounded in each field. So this is the way farmers conventionally farmers have been growing rice all over. So in this picture, you can see this. I took this photograph yesterday. This farmer in my neighboring village, he uses the pump set. He has been burning the midnight oil to operate his oil engine and electric motor to flood his field. So you can see he is happy that he is having a knee deep of water. So much of energy is he is using to pump out that water. So in the right side, you can see the algae that is setting in. That algae, I will come to it later. That algae is detrimental. So that is a great challenge. It's this algae is kind of it's a weed. It's a weed like a thing. So again, there is hot pan. So again, if one uses this common sense, he would understand that there will be a hot pan due to the soil compaction. So 1 acre of land means 4,047 square meters. So assuming that on an average, a farmer stores about 10 centimeters water, he impounds about, he sees to it that he is maintaining 10 centimeters of water. That means 1/10 of a meter. That means he is exerting a pressure of 405 metric tons of pressure weight over his land, which which compacts the soil. Because of that, actually the hot pan is set. So normally, what the farmers used to do, the government advises for breaking that hot pan using that chisel plow. So many farmers they don't get that machinery. One or two machines are available. Such specialty plowing gadget is available. So none of farmers, because of that, the percolation is not taking place. So much of pressure is exerted over the land. So much of compression is taking place. Then again, before transplant, before plowing, so the land must be super saturated. The soil must be super saturated. That means we have to say by irrigating the field, it throws out it removes the air that is trapped between particles. So there is deprivation of air. So constant flooding, it deprives the aeration. So there are. So we felt the need for water conservation due to the mentioned reasons. So we even I have tried a lot of these water conservation systems and methodologies. For instance, SRI is one good example. SRI system of rice intensification. So that was even now many farmers practice that SRI system of rice intensification. It is in a good agronomic practice. So for which so for SRI, the first thing is the land must be perfectly level. There should be tabletop leveling. That is the prerequisite. Whereas in drip irrigation, there is no prerequisite for perfect land leveling. Again, SRI is like labor intensive. So we use that Pono intercultivator. It is a good, nevertheless, it is a good agronomic practice. It is applicable only in the case of puddled field. It cannot be used in other kinds of fields. We have to drench the field and plow it, wet plow it. Then only we can adopt this technology. We use YOSI, we call YOSI, young seedling, one seedling, wider spacing, and alternative wetting and drying. These are some of the basic principles of SRI, system of rice intensification. Another one that is promoted in our area is AWD method, that is alternate wetting and drying method. So in that alternate wetting and drying method, we use a perforated PVC pipe. So we take it is not a technology. It is only a measurement gadget. We use 40 centimeters of a pipe of 15 centimeters dia and 40 centimeters length, and 20 centimeters we just make a lot of perforations all over, and 20 centimeters that is left blank, and it is an indicator. So we don't continuously flood the rice field. So whereas in the conventional method, we see to it that there is water stagnates always forever until the harvest. We stagnate water. But in the AWD method, we don't flood the field. So water is continuously it's not continuously irrigated. So so we give a gap. So first we irrigate the field, allow it to dry. After a few days, again when the soil is at a desired when it reaches the desired, I will explain it later with some visuals. So later again we give another irrigation. This is how we do it. So it is estimated that by this way 30% of water is conserved. So this is the report by this ERI. This is my field. This is my SRI field. You can see the perfect. So these are we need the trained laborers to take up SRI method of planting. So in whatever direction we see, you can find it is the space between between two rows and between two plants is 22.5. Perfect grid we have to maintain. So this is another view of the same field. So you can see the perfect grid. So this needs a trained labor in a perfectly level field. So again, it's this field is inundated, and we maintain minimum water. But again, it has to be we have to irrigate the field. So because since it is a flood irrigation, the water spread won't be uniform. These are some of the limitations. Yeah, this one is Kono intercultivator. Between two rows, we can use this gadget. So again, so we just push that. There is a wheel like a thing, and we puddle the field. We turn the soil. So that it aerates. It stimulates the roots, and again, no doubt, it gives profuse tillering. But nevertheless, it's labor intensive. This year, I am planning to adopt, with some tweaking in that system. I am going to adopt it in my drip irrigated rice field. I am going to try this Kono weeder on an experimental basis. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. This is the 40 centimeters pipe. So we have this 20 centimeters is perforated, another 20 centimeters it's left blank. Yeah, we just put it into the soil in 2 or 3 places. We put it into the soil, so that the perforated portion is beneath the surface. So we first we irrigate the field. We keep watching the pipe. So when the water level is below the 20 centimeters from the when it goes below that 20 centimeters from the surface level, then that is the time. That is the indication for us that we should irrigate. This is a indicator when we have to irrigate. So this one, many farmers use it here to use this gadget as a referral point for irrigation. Yeah, again, I haven't left even this sprinkler system. So no doubt, sprinkler system for horticultural crops, it is good. But nevertheless, I wanted to try it in my rice field as well. So as far as the sprinkler system is concerned, so we have a few limitations. So at the time of flowering, the flowers would certainly, at the time of flowering, it would shed and it would get affected. No chaff is possible in sprinkler system because since it continuously it throws that water, flowers might it affects the flowering at the time of flowering stage. And unlike a drip system where we have this fertigation, so it's not possible here. So these are some of the challenges in sprinkler system. The water spread is not as uniform as drip irrigation. So these are the things I observed in my field. Then, so I didn't leave it at that. So I wanted to know. So there should be some other better method to irrigate my field, but to manage my field. So curiously, I was looking for some alternative methods. So all the water conservation methods, which I said, of course, the water conservation methods like whether it is a AWD indicator or sprinkler or even SRI methods, they failed to produce the result I was looking for. I was desperate in looking for an effective alternative method of irrigation. I read about the drip irrigated rice. I browsed in the net. So I read about the drip irrigation by Jain Irrigation. Jain Irrigation has done a lot of work in drip irrigation. I read that in some journals. So I touched base with the Jain Irrigation Company. So as a farmer, I'm very much we are so very confident with Jain Irrigation's technology and their social commitments to help the farming community and their farmer-friendly technology. So, what if they say if they promote a particular technology, that means the technology is good. If first they test it in various places, then only they advise the farmers. So since I got some positive information by browsing from reading journals, I decided why not I try it through this Jain Irrigation. So one might ask, so why do you take so much of strain in growing rice during summer? No, summer is the best season for as a rice farmer for 35 years. I would rather say that rice to grow rice, summer is the best season from March to July 15th, August, July end. So this is the ideal season because we have good humidity. There is no so our place is in Tamil Nadu. We have only northeast monsoon. In some sporadic cases, we have this southwest monsoon. There won't be any damage by cyclonic storm. Cyclonic storm usually set during northeast monsoon, and labor availability would be high during would be very much available during summer season, and longer daytime enables photosynthesis. So these are some of the advantages. Again, so market also that's very conducive during summertime. Drying becomes easy. So we get quality grind during summer. So this is why I wanted to grow. I didn't want to leave that. I didn't want to lose that summer months to grow rice. The main challenge, so we have pump sets. By irrigating the field through the canals or pipes, there is a lot of percolation and runoff and a lot of water wastage. So to avoid, so I wanted to avoid percolation loss and runoff loss. So that's why I opted for this drip irrigation. So many people were skeptic about this drip irrigation because it is unheard of. So as I said earlier, the mindset for the past over thousands of for about more than 1,000 years. So rice could be grown only under flooded conditions. So, many people they were skeptical about it. They even want me not to venture in drip irrigation. But nevertheless, I have trust in science. I have trust in our scientists. I have trust in the good work done by research work done by people like Jain Irrigations Limited. It gave me confidence. I expressed my interest. I approached. I sent mail. I approached Jain Irrigation to to provide me with their technical assistance. I asked them to provide the technical support to grow rice using drip system. So in the year 2018, so they said yes, Ravichandran, we will guide you. So we appreciate your initiative. We appreciate your eagerness to grow rice using this water conservation method. Yes, certainly we will do the hand holding. So in the month of March 2018, I decided to grow rice. Normally, we shy away from that month of March because it coincides with that Agni Nakshatram. So that is the peak summer. I took up the sowing of the rice seed in the month of on 7th March 2018. 2018. That was my first experience in rice cultivation using drip. From 7th March until I harvested my crop, there was not even a single millimeter of rain. That means absolutely that you cannot expect more than a typical condition. This is the ideal condition no one could replicate. So this is the best season to try out this technology. So they sent their agronomist. So they visited my field. They sent one Mr. Guruswamy. He visited my field. So before they installing the drip system, they tested the water. So right now he is testing the water using. He brought some gadget, a handheld gadget. He tested the water quality. He even tested how much of water discharge from my borewell. I have a 5 horsepower borewell. I just jotted down all the details, and again he took the soil sample and got it tested. So this is the field in which I later I took up the cultivation of rice under drip system. So my farm assistant is taking the soil sample. Again, so he asked me, you go ahead with whatever you do normally. First, first I gave it general irrigation, so and allowed the weed to sprout. Then I use the plower, that power tiller, rotavator, and plowed the field so that I could control about 50% of the weed. Then later, I had that sheep penning. So normally we do it in all over in Tamil Nadu, either cattle penning or sheep penning. We used to do. So it is difficult to get the farmyard manure, to transport the farmyard manure, whereas the sheep and the cows, they deliver the excreta at our doorstep, at our field itself. So in order to increase the organic matter, normally we used to do. He advised me, whatever you do it. So I did it, and I used the rotavator. I have a small handheld power tiller. So I used the rotavator there were clods, and we broke it so that we achieved fine tilth condition. Normally, though it is not needed, leveling is not a prerequisite for drip system. One company, they wanted to demonstrate after seeing the plowing thing is happening. They wanted to test their laser leveler. They developed a software, a German company. So they used their land leveler in some of the fields, and in that field also land was level, and though it is not a prerequisite. So this is the sheep penning. So on the left hand side you can see the sheep. On the right hand side, this is my power tiller. My another farm laborer, he is plowing the field. He is pulverizing the soil. So in the middle we can see the excreta. So this is it enriches your soil like anything. It delivers at your Amazon, like Amazon, it delivers at your doorstep. So this is the general outlay of the drip system. So in the year 2018, I cultivated rice in the raised bed. That means the bed size is 3 feet width, and there is between two beds we have a furrow of 1 foot, and the lateral distance is 4 feet. That means because it is a clay soil, the water, the lateral spread of water would be relatively higher when compared with sandy loamy soil. So that's why otherwise I would have gone for 2.5 feet or 3 feet. But since it is my soil is clay soil, I use that between two laterals, the spacing was maintained at 4 feet. and the bed height is 15 centimeters. You know how I made that furrows? I use the Bridger attachment behind this. In the earlier slide, you can see that. So in that popular, we use a Ridger attachment. So we make this rigid attachment to make the furrows. So and I took up the cultivation of two varieties. One is CO51, another one is Arais Nano. Arais Nano is a hybrid, and CO51 is an open pollinated variety. So I maintain a distance of 15 centimeters between rows and 15 centimeters between plants. That means in that means in a particular bed we maintain 6 rows. So in the center of the bed we have this lateral on either side. So between we maintain in such a way that the space the space between the seed to seed is 15 centimeters, and say row to row is 15 centimeters, and the seedling to seedling is 15 centimeters. So this is how. So this is prior to laying on the left side. This is prior to the laying of the laterals. Then on the right side you can see clearly this one is 1 second. Yeah. So this one is 3 feet. This is the raised bed, and the space between the two laterals is 4 feet. So this lateral to this lateral is 4 feet, and this is the furrow. This one is 1 foot. So this is my field, and this is how the layout is. And this is the schematic sketch given by this for my guidance. Jain Irrigation provided. This is how we are going to do it. And so, as I said earlier, the borewell, I have a borewell which is about 200 feet deep. I have a high horsepower submersible pump, and the water quality, they tested the water quality, which is 7.82. The easy is 1.08, it's neutral, and the TDS is 546 ppm. On the lateral is 16 millimeters. As I said earlier, because of the clay soil, I maintain a distance of 4 feet. And between two drippers, drippers, it's 60 centimeters, so that the spread would be uniform, so that all the seedlings would get the same quantity of water, same amount of water. So the water discharge is calibrated at 4 liters per hour. So this is the general outlay of my drip system. So in this, my farm laborers are installing the drip system, and Jain Irrigation, they send their technocrats to lay the laterals. And at every point of time, since it is a new venture for me, perhaps Jain has been doing it for the past several years, but as far as I am concerned, and because many farmers were skeptic about it, so I requested them to provide their technical support every now and then. Besides providing technical support, they have to teach me as well as my farm laborers. I'm happy that I'm able to share my thoughts based on the experience I gained over the period of 2 years. This is the filters, and again they test run that prior to the transplanting. They test run that entire field, so you can see the droplets all over. So I visited every lateral, and we were convinced that the water discharge is uniform. So as I said, so 2 varieties I have taken. So CO51 is open pollinated variety. I cultivated in a half an acre. and it's a short duration variety. It is open pollinated variety, Coimbatore 51. It's a long slender variety. It's 105 days to 110 days. It's seed to seed. It's 105 days. And the Arise now is a hybrid. It's 120. It's a high yielder. So again, another question that arose in the minds of my fellow farmers as well as me also. How can we transplant in the dry field? So that was the question that was lingering in my mind. So the technocrats of this company, they advised me before transplanting. Already I had raised the seed bed, the seedlings in a separate tabak nursery. Uh, they advised me to run the system for about 4 to 8 hours prior to planting. So on the day of it was taken on 1st April 2018. On 1st April, on 31st May, exactly about 2 years back, that was my first experiment with drip irrigated planting. I ran that drip system for about 8 hours, and so that the water, it soaked all over the field, and it made the raised bed wet and uniformly water spread. Then, so fortunately, I have trained laborers because of my experience in SRI planting. So I have trained workforce. They took the sowing planting by maintaining a row to row spacing of 15 centimeters and plant to plant spacing of 15 centimeters. As I said earlier, 6 rows in a bed. So immediately after transplanting, I irrigated. I provide more than I provided enough water through the drip system until the plant established. So we have to give sufficient water through the drip system until it establishes. I followed it. So prior to that, I applied that basil dressing like the phosphatic fertilizer, then zinc, ferrous, all such things I applied. So that I will come to it later. I did it under. So I gave enough water supply until the plants, until the seedlings established. Then they gave a irrigation schedule. I meticulously followed what they gave or what they suggested. So they worked out, they calibrated. Now I can tell the rest of my farmers how to irrigate. So at the time I was a novice. I didn't know how to irrigate. I was a bit scared whether it would work. But nevertheless, the technology is too good to be true. I couldn't believe my eyes. Not only me, besides me, a lot of farmers that we will see later. They gave a drip irrigation. How many? What is the duration of irrigation each day? Yeah, this is the immediately they are doing this in the here. You can see my laborers doing the transplanting. They finished this portion, and now they are transplanting. They are doing the transplanting. They why we are leaving this furrows, so they can walk around. They can walk around without disturbing the raised bed. They planted. I'm really thankful to my farm farm hands. I don't want to call them workers or laborers. My farm assistants. So they did excellent work of doing the perfect transplanting. So this is after transplanting. It is how it looks, how neatly it looks. I'm really happy. So this is the irrigation they gave. So as I said, the first transplanting was on first, from 1st to 30th, So on a daily basis, I ran the drip system for 40 minutes. Again, from another 1 month, that is from 1st May to until the end of May, 1 hour 10 minutes. Then from June onwards, so that is the so yearly one is growth phase, growth phase, and another one is reproductive phase, then maturity phase. So during this reproductive phase, we have to give more water. So that means every day I operated the laterals. I operated the drip system for about 100 minutes. That's about 1 hour and 40 minutes. And later, so as we near our harvesting time, we reduce the irrigation to 1 hour 20 minutes. So, as I said, the quantity of water that is being discharged per hour is in my field is 22,444. They calibrated, they calculated. Yeah, again, coming to this fertilizer application. So this is my field. So it's in another field. So where I took the cultivation of rice using the conventional flooding method. So my farm assistant, he is in the conventional way. This is how we normally 95%, more than 95% of the farmers used to apply fertilizer. What they do, they flood the field and scatter the fertilizer all over the field. So thinking that the fertilizer, the plant would enjoy whatever fertilizer they are giving. It is something like, so we must understand the needs of the plant. We think that the plant would take whatever we give. It is something like expecting a baby who is taking a baby food. If you expect it to have idli or dosa or chapati, how can it do it? So likewise, it is the analogy is the same. So if we give fertilizer like that, we expect that the plant would take whatever we give. It is not so. So majority of the fertilizer gets wasted. It leaches into the soil, or evaporates, or it is detrimental for the plant. It contaminates the land. It is not needed. Again, fertilizer most of it's all chemical based. Sorry, it's all petroleum based. It's a petroleum based chemical, and we import a lot of foreign exchange is being wasted, and government provides enormous subsidy for fertilizer, and that is wasted. That is taxpayers' money that is being wasted this way. Again, coming back to this, so I just wanted to make a comparison between how we normally apply fertilizer, that includes me also, in the conventional manner, and how in drip system fertilizer is being nutrition is being applied. It is providing the right quantity of fertilizer or nutrition at the right time, at the right place, in the right way. So normally, the agriculture department gives a blanket recommendation. So give so much of 40 yen and or 50 yen, 30p and 30k you give. Then farmer says, "Oh, why should I unnecessarily spend labor?" So he goes to the shop and buys a few bags of diammonium phosphate, urea, and gives the basal dose, all the 50% of the nitrogen at the base itself immediately after transplanting. Then whenever he finds time, without understanding the plant's needs, he goes and again whenever he finds time, he gives another. He goes to whenever he finds time. He goes to the shop. Whenever he has money, he goes to the shop. He buys some fertilizer. Again, at his convenience, he gives, expecting the plant would take whatever he gives. It is not so. So you can see most of the fertilizer gets wasted, and some part of the field would get more nutrition. Some part would be deprived of the nutrition. This is what has been happening in the conventional method. So in the fertigation method, in the drip irrigation method, so we know that we treat each seedling, each plant as a profit-making unit. every plant gets its due share of nutrition at the right place at the right time. So by in the conventional method, when you throw it, we do not know where it falls. Even it might even that will be washed away, or if there is a wind, it will be going to the neighboring farmers' land. So this is what happening. But with the drip system, we give precisely the needs of we satisfy the needs of the plant in the exact way, in the what the plant needs, that we give through this fertigation system. So they gave this fertilizer schedule. I meticulously followed the fertilizer schedule. They taught us how to. You can see me as I'm wearing my dhoti in the left side. Left side, you can see me. This how I got my feed. The Jain irrigation people, they taught not only me, all my farm laborers, how to they say the importance of giving fertilizer, and the importance of and how the venturi operates. All such things they explained to us. So it's a important part in our learning curve. So this is the fertilizer schedule. Yeah. And one more. So now we have finished that fertilizer related matter. Earlier, prior to transplanting, as I said, I adopt this integrated nutrition management. That means I give enough farmyard manure, either by way of compost or by of cattle penning, and we give based on the after the soil, after testing the soil, we provide we satisfy the nutrition requirement. We give this basal dressing of diammonium phosphate and phosphatic fertilizer, basal fertilizer we give, and the zinc also. Our soil is lacks zinc. Most of the places in the Tanjore Delta, Kaveri Delta districts, we lack zinc, and iron fluorosis, iron fluorosis, iron deficiency is there. So that also we satisfied by giving it in the basal itself. So that satisfies this. We provide nutrition we provide whatever P and K, N and K, using that drip system, using that venturi through that fertigation method. Having said that, one more important question that lingered in our mind was many people felt that how are you going to, given some of the agronomists I know, they were apprehensive. You would be facing a lot of weed problem in your drip irrigated field. That is what they felt. Now I followed all the good agronomic practices. So as I said earlier, first I plowed after giving prior to deciding about drip irrigation. I plowed the field by after irrigating it, and after wetting the field, and allowing allowing the wheat seeds to sprout, and plowed it using rotavator. So thus I could control sufficient number of weeds. After that, at the time of planting, so I'm not averse to organic farming, but nevertheless we cannot do away with some of the chemicals as well. So I used Pedilacro, that is pre-emergent broad spectrum selective herbicide. I used immediately after 2 to 3 days. I provided that Pedilacro, and later when as the plant grows, plant is C3 and the weed is C4. The seed weeds that are beneath the soil surface, they would emerge afterwards. So that might escape the Pedilacro. Again, they might sprout. And if we leave it, then it would outsmart my rice crop. So when the plant is in the 2 to 3 leaf stage, I used to monitor my field every day, morning and evening. I used to scout around my field. So when I see that there is a sufficient number of weeds, so I feel if it is necessary, if it crosses that economic threshold level, I go for some chemical spray. So I use that Pesperibox sodium. So there is a very good chemical, very good molecule. That is a post-emergence broad spectrum selective post-emergent herbicide. So thus I controlled weed to a significant extent. So on need-based basis, so if earlier we used to, so if we don't take care of weeds in the initial stage, then it would, as I said, it would outmod us. It would compete with the rice plant for water, for nutrition, for sunlight. So we spend enormous money in hand weeding. Since I took care of the weed management much earlier, I used a few laborers to hand weed whatever left out to weeds. So this is how I manage the weed menace in my rice field. Again, another one is this one on need-based basis. I use light traps. I use pheromones. I use color sticky trap, yellow sticky trap. All such things I use. I don't leave. I follow this integrated pest management. So so I spotted few some sporadic incidents of leaf roller and stem borer. I applied necessary chemical sprays. So yeah, thus nutrition we have seen, weed control we have seen, and crop maintenance, crop protection we have seen. So these are the things, and these are different stages of my crop. This is immediately after planting. On the left side, you see that this is immediately after planting. This is another view. So you can see the lateral here. So this is the space, and you can see a lot of gap. So later you will see that even this portion is covered. Yeah, you can see the lateral. This is the roguing space. We just walk in that go spray without disturbing the raised bed. That is why we leave this. And now last year in 2019, I tried with this, that I dispensed with this raised bed. I successfully tried in the flat bed, uniform, without leaving that furrows. I transferred it. It was quite successful. Yeah, this one is 30 to 40 days old crop. See, this is 30 to 40 days old crop, and you can see on the right side as it matures. So you can see no water here, and nevertheless it's green, it's robust, it's healthy. Yeah, so 90 to 100 days is this happy Ravichandran. So normally, normally in the flooded field, so when the plant is 90 to 100 days old, you cannot walk in that field without without the mud sticking to your foot, and if you walk in that flooded field, you would be there will be knee deep mud in that field. So in this case, you can see it's it is quite it's simply wet. I maintain just about the moist level, so that's why one could able to walk freely within the field in the 90 to 100 days old crop. So you can see the grains developing. So this is the matured crop. So even then you can see that no water stagnation here. Normally the knee-jerk reaction is when the crop is in the mature stage, we have to give a lot of water. So it's not so. And yeah, again, crop inspection. So every time, periodically they inspected. I requested them to do the hand holding. They inspected. They were scouted around my field, and they inspected each and every plot. Yeah, just before this is the day one the farmer normally waits for. So this is my crop is ready for harvest. Many people, many farmers, they ask me. So I planted this crop on the roadside. Many farmers who passed by that road, uh, they ask me, "How are you now that we have successfully grown that rice? How are you going to harvest? Because there is lateral." Then what I did, this place we have this submine. These are the laterals. So laterals they were kept in the east-west direction. The other end is tied to the loose end is tied to a peg, which I removed and put it in the north-south direction, so that this is the place I have to do the harvest. And I place the laterals in the instead of it was earlier it was in the east-west direction. Later, I removed that loose end and placed it in the north-south direction. You can see my farm hands are doing it. It's me talking over phone. This is the day the farmer waits for. Harvest is happening, and it's a good moment. Yeah, you can see the rice. Yeah, this is the yield comparison. So many people ask me, whether there is a yield increase. Well, because by growing this, by installing this drip system, so would there be tremendous 100%, 200% increase in yield? No, it's not so. So, but for drip, I would not have gone for paddy cultivation in the month of March. Otherwise, my land would have been left fallow. The very fact that I could grow that rice in the peak summer is simply only due to drip system. Otherwise, I would not have gone for rice. So that is one thing. There is definitely yield increase. So I made a comparative study. So this is Arise Nano. As I said, this is hybrid variety. Hybrid normally it gives relatively a better yield. So I extrapolated to 1 hectare. The Arise Nano gave 6.137 metric tons per hectare, and the CO51 it's under drip. And the CO51 and drip system it gave 5.422, and the same CO51 it gave 4.7 metric tons per hectare. It is extrapolated. From 1 acre, I extrapolated to 1 hectare. So there you can see the difference, the yield increase. So this is because better use of water, better use of nutrition. Each plant were taken care of. Each plant became a profit-making unit. So that's why the yield is relatively higher. The important thing is, see, when water is in short supply, water is the key factor, right? So when water is in key factor, we have to see the productivity of water. So productivity of water we have to see. So when water is in short supply, then we have to give more importance for water. So water use efficiency increases and the land use efficiency increases, because land use efficiency increases by 100%, because otherwise I would not have, that land would have been left fallow. With that motor, I would not have dared to go for rice cultivation in the month of March, the two in the Agni Nakshatram period. So the very fact that I had gone for rice is because of drip system. That means I used my land more efficiently. Water use efficiency increases, land use efficiency increases, And there is definitely there is increasing yield also. Again, use of nutrition. I made best use of the nutrition without contaminating my field. So I will come to it later how the field gets contaminated in the flood system. So this is the profitability statement. So this is with respect to the year 2018. So every year it keeps changing. Because of the labor cost, material cost, and harvest machine expenses, and the diesel and other operating costs. And now let me just quickly go through it. The profitability per acre as far as CO51 is 58% net profit ratio. The profitability of CO51, the net profit is net profit ratio is net profit divided by gross sale value multiplied by 100. That gives a percentage of net profit. That is the net profit percentage. This is Arise, and this one is very interesting. It's me. So this is prior to harvest. So this is CO51. This is Arise Nano. You guess what it is? Yes, this is pulse. Normally, we think that the general perception is rice needs enormous quantity of water. The general mindset is rice needs a lot of water. Without water, we cannot grow rice. So we have to flood the field. So that has been the mindset for hundreds of years. And another one is pulse. If you stagnate water even 2 centimeters, it would perish in 2 days. That is the generally if you have urad, that means black gram. If you stagnate water 1 or 2 centimeters, it would perish. In rice, if you don't stagnate water for say on an average 10 centimeters, then rice would not perform. The very fact that both rice and this pulse crop performed extremely equally well and they were coexisted, that itself proves that the water that you are giving for pulse crop is sufficient enough for rice crop. That means thus far we have been overusing water for rice, and we could have saved enormous quantity of water. It is enough if we use the water that we are providing for pulse crop. That is enough for rice. That is my I made this. I left 2 laterals between these 2 crops. In fact, there is no bund between. So whatever irrigation I gave for this rice, that also I gave for this pulse crop. That means whatever treatment I had given for rice, it also got. But and one thing I would like to clarify: it's not an intercrop. I just wanted to convince myself that whether rice could be grown with the water that we normally give for pulse. That is my objective of this particular study. I'm really happy that both performed equally well. You can see that robust rice crop as well as robust pulse crop. So the legendary Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. So he is the pride of India. I occasion to meet him. He sent a personal message to me, appreciating my efforts in conserving water. It's me with our professor. Yeah, many farmers. As I said, they didn't believe since I had it just on the roadside. Many farmers passes by. They just stopped their vehicle. They stopped and they entered my field. And how is it? Why are we not irrigating? Then so now nowhere here you can see the laterals. Now you cannot see the laterals. So how are you growing that without water? I said that I used to this one drip system. So these are our legendary farmers in our region. They visited my field and they were very happy about the way. They are my role models. They had experimented a lot of things earlier. They visited my field and they were very appreciative of that. He is Dr. T.M. Tyagarajan. He is called the father of SRI. He propagated a system of rice intensification all over India, even abroad also, in Madagascar and other places. He visited. He learned that I am experimenting. I was experimenting with the drip system. He visited my field, and he is really appreciative of my efforts. And this one is he is the honorable chief minister, honorable agri minister of Pondicherry, honorable agri minister of Pondicherry, Mr. Kamalakanda. So I was not available on the day. I had gone out somewhere without informing anyone. He visited my field. He entered my field. He got into my field and went around my field. He checked how the drip system works. He never let anyone know that he is a minister. He is a minister. Immediately after this was taken, he shared this photograph. He congratulated me. Immediately after reaching Pondicherry, he announced that his government would promote drip irrigation in rice in Pondicherry, Union Territory of Pondicherry, in a big way. So this one agriculture department staffs, they visited my field, the AD agriculture and seed certification people. This one, this CO51, I supplied it as a seed material. So director of Tamil Nadu Rice Research Institute, Adurai, director and agronomist and great agronomist, they visited my field. And Krishi Vigyan Kendra from Nidamang, Krishi Vigyan Kendra, Nidamang, they visited my field. They inspected, and this is this one is Dr. Soman. Even now, whenever I have doubt in whatever crop I have, in the case of agronomy, I don't hesitate to ask him. He doesn't shy away. He teaches me a lot of finer aspects of farming. I really salute him. And Jain irrigation staff, Vice President Mr. Narayan, and Guru Swami, who has been guiding me right from the beginning, from seed to seed. Then the Joint Director Agriculture also visited my field. And NABARD, NABARD Assistant General Manager, they visited my field. Then private industry people also, they visited the Arise Nano, the seed producers, the innovators of that hybrid seed. They also visited my field. And paddy field day was conducted. A lot of farmers from about 700 to 750 farmers all over India, from Karnataka, from Andhra, from other districts. They all visited. The Joint Director Agriculture and the Director Tamil Nadu Rice Research Institute. Everybody attended that meet. Our Principal Secretary Agriculture, he is very much interested in my efforts of growing rice in drip system. A lot of farmers, you can see a lot of farmers inspecting my field. Yeah, they posed a lot of questions to Dr. Soman. And these are all farmers. They spent the whole day in my farm. So this is the demo plot. They wanted me to, see how the seed beds are being made, the rice beds are made, how laterals are laid. So they had hands-on experience in my farm. So in my village, we had never seen this much of a crowd in my village before. Many farmers from far and about 300, 400 kilometers, even from Andhra and Karnataka, They visited my field, my farm, and we had a brainstorming session. We had a conference also. Yeah, these are some of the merits of drip irrigation. See, initially I thought that I would be making some benefit by way of savings in water, but to my pleasant surprise, I could realize much more direct and indirect benefits. First thing, so I would not have, as I said earlier, I think I'm repeating it again, but it is worth repeating again. So during Agni Nakshatram, nobody ventures into growing rice. So I took it as a challenge. So whether rice could be grown during the peak summer, Agni Nakshatram is the peak summer of every year. So whether rice could be grown, so this is the litmus test I had for this rice cultivation. Uh, then people ask, how are you going to remove that lateral? So there is no need to remove the lateral. You just keep it in the in the perpendicular direction. So that's how we do it. And we can use the same drip system for subsequent crops. We can grow another crop. Again, I can do the crop rotation. After rice, one can go for cotton, one can go for, depending on the climatic condition, one can market condition of the grains or crop you are growing. You can make judicious crop rotation. You can go for even pulse crop. So I prefer pulse crop because when other crops, other plants take nutrition from the soil, pulse adds nutrition to the soil. That's why I enjoy growing pulse crop. There is obviously, as I explained earlier, there is remarkable increase in water use efficiency. So I have explained it, elaborated enough. Land use efficiency also increases. And the nutrition uptake efficiency also increases. Land use efficiency increases because, so otherwise you would not have, I would have left it fallow and it became a profit making unit. So land use efficiency increases. So there are, I can go on and on and on. Yeah, fertigation through the drip system. So as I said, unlike the conventional method where we spread the fertilizer, chemical fertilizer all over the field, so we give the right quantity at the right place, at the right moment, and the right way. So this is the biggest advantage of drip irrigation, fertigation. There is uniform growth. For any crop to perform well, you must have uniform crop standing. Drip system enables that because of the uniform spread of water and the uniform spread of nutrition. So it is something like we are providing an ideal condition for the automobile to perform. If you have a two-wheeler, if you say that it gives say 60 kilometers under ideal road condition, if you provide ideal condition two-wheeler, it gives 60 kilometers. So we seldom create that ideal condition. That's why we get the 35 kilometers, 40 kilometers, 45 kilometers. So the air pressure, the road condition, and the wind direction and the friction, everything goes into the making. Whereas in drip system provides ideal condition for the plant to perform. No other technology provides this kind of ideal condition. That is why the drip system, the productivity of land, productivity of nutrition, productivity of water, it increases because of we create ideal conditions. The overall profitability also increases. In flood irrigation, so we must have productive tillers, right? So in flood irrigation, because of the inundation, it inhibits the tiller formation, right? So since you stagnate water, the tillers, they don't develop. The productive tillers don't develop. Whereas since you maintain aerobic condition for drip in drip irrigated rice, you can see for yourself the profuse tillering. Seeing is believing. I'm telling it out of my experience. That is profuse tillering, so which is enabled by the drip system. These are some of the advantages. And another one, which is very interesting, which I noted. See, we must have heard about this brown plant hopper. We call it Pogayam. Pogayam. That means this is a sucking pest. So it is something like, you nurture the crop for the entire season. Just before harvest, 10 or 15 days before harvest. So see, by this evening, you might have seen that yesterday evening I might have seen my good crop condition. Next morning when I go there, I can see only burnt field all over. That means, so since I stagnate water, this Pogayam, that is brown plant hopper, it devastates the entire field. It saps the plant, and it becomes as if totally it is withered. It inflicts loss anywhere between 40 to 80%. So once this brown plant hopper is chronic attack of BPH, then you are done. That's all. It is something like locust infestation in North India. This is because immediately what we used to do. So in the flooded field, we drain the field because of this brown plant hopper. It travels from one place to another by floating on the water. When there is no water, there is a question of migrating. So that's why so this one is you can see. So this is my neighboring farmer's field. So you can see this one is totally burnt. Yeah, this one is totally burnt. And again in the fringes also you can see that. So this is the affected plant. You can see a lot of hundreds and hundreds of these sucking pests all over the root region. So because of that, because of the flooded condition, the Pogayam, the brown plant hopper travels from one place to another, whereas migrates from one plant to another plant within the field. So then we have to drain the field. So which is by the time you drain the field, it would have inflicted enough damage. You are wrong. Whereas in drip system, there is no question of flooded condition because we are maintaining just moist level. So that's why I can say with confidence that this brown plant hopper is you cannot find in drip irrigated rice field. This is one important observation I noted in my field. This one is Spirogyra algae. During summer, you can if there are farmers from rice farmers, they would agree by flooding the field during summer. You can see a lot of these algae. It's not blue green algae. This Spirogyra algae. It's an aquatic weed. It competes with the plant for. So this I had taken yesterday. Yesterday evening, I took it in my another farmer's field to make this presentation. I saw that. I noticed that algae. This algae it competes with the plant for nutrition. It inhibits the growth of the seedling. So young seedling, when you find this Spirogyra algae, the tiny seedlings they get affected. And it restricts the tillering also. It hampers the tillering. It restricts the soil aeration also. It forms a sheet like a thing. We use a copper sulfate. It seldom works. It is difficult to apply. So this is the main problem of flooded rice. Whereas in drip irrigated rice, so this is not going to be there. I'm sure about it, and one can be sure about it. So, coming to the, we are just nearing the end of my presentation. Drip irrigation in rice, its environmental impact. Rice is affected by the climatic change in the climatic condition, and climatic condition is impacted by rise, because say water is a fast depleting resource, so we have to conserve water. So when we pump out more water, we are using, if you use a diesel engine, oil engine, we use this fossil fuel, and when you imagine to produce 1 kilogram of rice, if you are going to use 4,000 liters of water, how much of energy you would have spent? And so by so this water use efficiency minimizes the withdrawal of groundwater because of the higher water use efficiency. Water depletion that we have seen already. Yeah, and the one important thing is, say in the conventional method, since we apply fertilizer, it percolates and contaminates the groundwater. So I understand in Punjab, this too much of chemical fertilizers, it contaminates the groundwater. So that is one thing. But whereas since we give in small doses, we don't flood the field. There is no question of percolating, going below the to the aquifer. It is not happening. It is not going to happen in drip irrigated system. And the eutrophication. Besides us, and it is going to affect the ponds and fish in the ponds or lakes. So because of the runoff. And one interesting aspect is, it is alleged that rice grown in flooded condition releases CH4, methane. Methane is CH4, which is more lethal than nitrous oxide, more lethal than carbon dioxide and the carbon monoxide. So it is a greenhouse gas. Rice grown in flooded condition, it emits a lot of CH4. But in flooded condition, rice grown in flooded condition releases a lot of CH4. Whereas while growing rice in using drip system, we seldom release any methane gas. It doesn't release any methane gas. It is environmental friendly technology. I will come to it what the government should consider, why the government should consider this aspect. And I was explaining about this soil compaction. So putting that 407 tons of mass all over the field in 1 acre, how much of compaction it makes. So that is reduced. And avoidance of soil salinity. This is very important. My place is about, as a crow flies, it's about 25 kilometers from the sea, from the Bay of Bengal. So in my area, so previously we used to get water at 45 feet depth. Now the water is available at 200 feet. As we go deeper and deeper, the seawater ingression takes place. So the water becomes saline. The seawater ingression, because of that, especially during summer, because of the dilution effect. So because water level goes down and salty content will be higher. So as long as it is beneath the surface, it's fine. So once we pump out that water, it contaminates the entire field. The soil becomes saline. This is a great challenge. So I have seen a lot of farmers in Nagapattinam district in the seashore area, where farmers when they pump out water and flood the field, the soil salinity sets in, and all the salty things sets on the soil. It is very difficult to push that. You have to wait for the rain to northeast monsoon and dissolve the salt. And it is very difficult, and not only it reduces the plant growth, it makes adverse impact on the plant performance, but also it contaminates the soil. Whereas in a drip system, we use just about 1/3 or 1/4 of the water that we normally use. Even the soil contamination will be very minimal. So this is the methane gas. Way back in 2009-10, Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, they tried out in my field, in some other field, how much of methane is being emitted by rice crop grown under flooded condition. They put a glass chamber and put it, and they measured the methane. And one Dr. Geeta Lakshmi, she visited, and she did a lot of experiments. Then I understood that then only I decided to, I was looking for alternative method. Let me not be a causative factor for the adverse environmental impact because of my rice. So that's why I was looking for alternative methods of growing rice with less water. So I'm fortunate that I found out a solution for it. So what are the challenges? So I have talked all of the merits. So the greatest challenge is mindset, the mindset of farmers, mindset of people. Everybody thinks that rice could be grown only under flooded condition. If there is no, if you cannot flood the field, you cannot grow rice, because they flooded the field because to take care of the weeds. So that is the perhaps that should be the reason. But so there are, fortunately we have a lot of other integrated weed management system to take care of the weeds. So now it is not needed to, there is no need for flooding the field. So this mindset should go. Rice is not an aquatic crop. It is like any other crop. With little amount of water, you can grow rice. So as I said earlier, so the amount we are giving for pulse is good enough for rice also. So I mentioned about this, how the poet Oya, those days, there is a direct correlation between the amount of water that you are stagnating water and the yield of rice. So this is it doesn't work now. It is irrelevant now. So this is this kind of mindset we have been having for hundreds of years. So these are some of the important challenges, and weed menace also we elaborated upon. I talked about integrated weed management. We have excellent, so as I said earlier, we have excellent pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides, and GMRAs is one option, but it is only a fond hope. But there is a lot of policy paralysis, and it's all related to policy-related matter. Now we have drought-resistant, flood-tolerant rice using molecular marker-assisted breeding technology. Similarly, we can have drought-resistant rice also. Again, the policy has to be taken by the government. Some experiments are going on. It's not a GM crop. It uses the biotechnology. It's not a GM crop. So that is also another option we must consider. And coming to the last slide, so we are concerned about this cost. Many people ask, so cost is a big issue. Can everybody afford it? So one must see, instead of writing off the government gives enormous subsidy. Each state gives enormous subsidy for farmers. In Tamil Nadu earlier, they didn't consider drip system for subsidy for drip in rice crop. Now they have changed the rules. They are providing enough subsidy. Now the subsidy is available for farmers growing rice using drip system. So instead of writing it off in the first year, and instead of depreciating it over its actual lifetime, my suggestion is to how many years, how many crops you are going to use during its effective lifetime. For instance, if you are but for the drip, I would say in 5 years time I would have gone for only 5 crops. With the drip system, I can go for 10 crops. I can go one additional crop every year. So instead of writing it off every year, So I can set aside, I can apportion the cost, in each crop. So in pulse crop, I can apportion a particular proportional portion, and rice crop I can apportion it. So payback you get in about 5 years, considering the other benefits, considering the extra season extra crop you are getting, that also must be considered. So that the if after net of subsidy, farmer is going to spend only not very much big amount. One might think that it is a huge money, but it is an infrastructure you are creating for your farm, and every year you are going to apportion a part of it. So net of subsidy, after the subsidy portion, the net portion that you are going to divide it over its number of crops, additional crops you are going to grow. So thus, we take care of the cost also. Besides the profitability of the crop, we must consider this water use efficiency and nutrition use efficiency and land use efficiency. So after that, as I showed in my earlier slide, so in 2 raised beds, I showed that ADT5 black gram alongside my drip irrigated rice. So I explained it in detail earlier. So whatever water we are providing for rice, that is good enough for whatever water we are providing for black gram, that is good enough for rice. So that itself shows how much of water we are able to save. So this is my drip irrigated rice, and alongside is the it was taken last year. Alongside is my pulse crop, black gram. So between in 2018, these are the drip irrigated rice. This is my black gram crop, and I prefer after rice I want to go for this year also I have gone for after the drip irrigated rice I have gone for pulse. Right now I have pulse crop in my drip field after the rice crop. So this is I'm using this drip system in my to grow pulse crop. This is my pulse crop. Yeah, you can see the robust pulse crop. It is actually it is an import substitute. We are importing a lot of dal, a lot of black gram, green gram, chana. We can improve it. We can get additional income, and besides, it improves the soil quality also, because these legumes they don't take much of nutrition from the soil. In fact, they add nutrition to the soil through the root zones, root nodules. So it absorbs nitrogen from the atmosphere and stores it in the rhizosphere through the root nodules. The next crop you can have better yield. So I would like to rotate between rice and pulse crop. And one of my friends, after rice crop, he had gone for cotton also. So this is the cost of cultivation of black gram. So profit percentage. So I have worked out. So now this is I think this is my last slide. See, considering the various benefits, direct and indirect benefits, and its environmental benefits, government should provide liberal subsidy for the drip irrigated. Our Prime Minister wants to double the farmers' income. Certainly, we can achieve it by using the farmland more efficiently, using the water more efficiently, using the scarce resources like nutrition more efficiently. Certainly, we can double why double? We can even triple the income. So we must give. Government should follow the. In fact, Tamil Nadu government has lowered the GST, and we actually the request was to lower the GST, but they have waived it completely. So likewise, all states should waive the GST for drip system. So again, as I said earlier, there is lack of awareness. whether it is possible. So seeing is believing, and anyone can visit my farm. Anyone can visit my farm anytime. I'm always available. I have provided my mobile number also. You can even note down. It's 944 36 83 724. This is my mobile number. Anyway, anytime you can contact me. I can share my experience with you. You need not hesitate calling me. And if you have any comments, if you want to have any clarification from me, or if you have any from my presentation, certainly I'm too willing to clarify to the best of my ability. You can pass on, you can come and put your thoughts in the comment box. I'm ready to respond to it. And one more request to the government through this webinar is carbon credit. Yes, carbon credit. The government must provide. Rice being a staple crop, and it feeds more than 50% of our population. We cannot, ignore rice crop. We cannot, because of various reasons, we don't want rice. We cannot say it emits CH4. That's why we have to reduce the rice production. No, we cannot do away with the rice crop. We should grow sufficient rice crop to feed our population. So, since rice crop grown under drip system, the CH4 emission is practically nil. The government should consider providing carbon credit for rice using rice cultivated using drip system. This is my humble request on behalf of the farming community to our government. So other thing, submersion tolerance, which I talked about, and and the short duration hybrid. These are So this is the summary. So rice is not a water guzzler. It's a wrong mindset. So we should erase it. We should delete it from our mind that the rice could be grown only in the flooded condition. That's a wrong notion. That should go away from our mind. So we don't we don't leave our land fallow. We make best use of our land. We make best use of our water. We make best use of our nutrition, scarce nutrition, which we are importing. So it saves enormous quantity of foreign exchange. I talked about this less incidence of BPH and how that algae affects. All such things are not there in drip irrigated rice, and methane emission is low. All such things are taken care of. I have elaborated in the given time, and our aim is to produce more crop per drop. Certainly, as a farmer, it is I commit myself for preserving our environment, to increase the farm productivity, to drive away hunger and malnutrition from the face of the earth. So I am one of the proud farmers. Thank you so much. Yeah, let us use water wisely and grow rice profitably. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.